I guess my role here today is to talk to you a little bit about some real hard numbers that get at success for children and where they live. The Partnership for Strong Communities is a statewide housing policy organization. We care very much about where people live because housing in these days of infrastructure discussion, housing is the most basic form of infrastructure. We give out a bookmark at the Partnership that has a quote from Maya Angelou, which talks about the need to have a place to retreat to. Little child has to be able to have a room where he or she can go for privacy, to do his homework, just to play, get away. Unfortunately, if you go over to the South Park Inn, you will see stuffed animals on beds in the homeless shelters now because we don't have enough rental housing. Last year we saw a 13% increase in family homelessness in the state. Kids should be doing homework in homeless shelters. More to the point, we have a lot of children living in crowded conditions. We have a lot of children who just are not stable. They're mobile, and I'll go through some of those discussions. George Coleman and Mark McCullen were kind enough a couple of months ago to invite me to be on an advisory committee on mental health and health issues facing the Department of Education. And Commissioner McCullen asked me what did I hope would come of this advisory committee, and what I said for all in the room was that our schools do a great job between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. But if a child has to go home to a two-bedroom apartment that 8 people are living in with lead paint and dust mites and broken pipes, and it's overcrowded, and mom or dad spending 50% of the income on rent, and there's no money left for a warm coat or a nutritious meal or a pair of boots, forget a book or a movie. How do we expect children to succeed in school? I said to the chairman of the State Board of Education, Alan Taylor, who's an old friend on the way out, I said, you know, schools are like Fort Apache. They are dealing between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. with a lot of problems that kids go back to when they leave. So at the risk of getting you all pretty depressed, I want to go through some statistics that we put together that talk about the relationship between housing and education and health. Students who transfer schools at least twice are half as likely to be proficient in reading as their stated peers. Mobile students are more likely to underperform in reading and mathematics. High mobility, and I have the citations for anyone who wants to use later on. High mobility has also been linked to negative behavioral traits. Students who change elementary schools several times are 20% more likely to exhibit violent behavior in high school. Poor, low-performance school districts are disproportionately affected by mobility. In 2006 and 2007, the most affluent districts in the state had a stability rate of 95.2%. The less affluent, poorer districts, that rate was 77.2%. Most cases of mobility, 58%, are related to housing. So if a parent loses his or her job, or they can't make the rent, or if the carburetor goes, and all of us can absorb that cost and still make the rent payment, but some families can't, and they fix the carburetor to get to work, and they don't make the rent payment when they get evicted, and the student has to move. Any educator will tell you that a student who moves tends to fall behind. When they fall behind, they tend to fail, and when they fail, they tend to drop out. And now we have a whole mess of other problems. Okay. Housing and health care. Now let me just underscore a couple of things here. All of us, when we got our first apartment, were told by our parents, don't spend more than 25% of your income on rent. Right? All their parents told us that. I think you learn that from parents. Well, HUD puts that at 30%. HUD says don't spend more than 30% of your income on rent. It's not affordable if you're spending, because you need 70% left over for food, clothing, and transportation, and healthcare, and all the other necessities. 26% of Connecticut households in 2007. 26% renters and owners were making 80% of median income or less and spending more than 30% of their income on housing. That's number one. Number two, of renters, 404,000 renting households in the state. A quarter of those were making 50% of median income or less and spending more than half of that income on housing. So where's the money left over for a warm coat or food or boots or a nutritious meal or a movie or a book? Okay, so understand that going in. Okay, here's a few more stats for you. 10% of all children and 20% of low-income children live in overcrowded homes. A 2004 Vancouver study found that people who spend more than 30% of their income on housing are 31% more likely to have fair or poor health and more than twice as likely to have symptoms of depression. Lead paint. 1.1 million, 1.4 million housing structures in Connecticut were built pre-1979 and therefore more likely to have lead paint. And as all of you know, children who are exposed to lead suffer from reading disabilities, hyperactivity, attention deficit disorder, and behavioral problems. So 1.1 out of 1.4 were built before 1979. Mold, we see a lot of that. Substandard housing has that. Broken pipes, leaking roofs create moisture. That leads to rodents, insect infestation, subjects children to asthma. Asbestos, 61% of Connecticut homes were built before 1970, when asbestos was in paint, tiles, shingles, insulation, other materials. Radon, the greatest threat is in 4 southern counties in Connecticut. 4 southern counties, sure. I could go on. The real issue is this. Kids can't come from a bad housing situation and go to school and go back to a bad housing situation and succeed. For all the work that George Coleman and David Carter and all of our educators do during the day, and all the work that you do, if kids don't have a good place to live, they're not going to succeed. Now, I'm not asking all of you to contribute to housing organizations, and I'm not asking you to all come to our meetings. And Joe McGee, who you're lucky enough to hear from soon, is on one of our steering committees. We have a lot of good people involved. We don't need that. What we need is for all of you to think about housing. Kids need a good place to live. And if you do that, I think you will help children. And I'm very happy to be here before you today. I appreciate you inviting me and thinking about where kids grow up. Thank you.